a year and a half ago, our organization got contacted by some community members in the city of Kingston, it's very near Woodstock. Everybody knows Woodstock. It's in Ulster County. Ulster County is, call it, 30 miles south of Albany, again, 80-ish miles north of here. And these folks were very upset. And interestingly, it was some people from the middle of the city of Kingston, a sort of post-industrial, mini Rust Belt looking city with a nice coastal community that's been rebuilt for, tourism and recreation and nightlife, but a real core city that really never came back from losing those industrial jobs that went overseas 30 years ago or however long ago. And some of them were land conservationists, and some of them were from the Woodstock area, and others were from the middle of the city. And they were all concerned about a plan to bottle water, and bless you all for drinking out of carafes, because we have some of the best drinking water in New York City that can be found anywhere on the planet. And Niagara Bottling Company, I think the largest of the bottled water manufacturers, whatever you would call them, and distributors in the United States, wanted to take a fairly significant proportion of the city's excess water supply and bottle it and send it 300, 400, 500 miles away for people who don't understand how bottled water can be a real problem unless you absolutely need to have bottled water because you don't have access to safe municipal drinking water. And they came to us and they said, what can we do about it? We said, well, there is a beautiful law that we have in New York, which is even stronger than the famous National Environmental Policy Act. In 1969, the United States created the environmental impact law known as the National Environmental Policy Act, which is a model for similar laws requiring you to study the impacts of a project, see whether or not there are alternatives that might be less impactful, look for mitigation measures that would reduce the impacts, and ultimately determine whether you think the impacts are worth the benefits. The benefits are worth the impacts, I guess I should say. And so we said, you've got to get an environmental impact statement for this project, because this is 40% of the city's remaining uncommitted drinking water supply. And that's in a good year. And a drought year could be a lot higher. And the company was also seeking grants from the state of New York. They were seeking tax abatements. And we said, well, let's focus on the environmental impact. We're environmental impact lawyers. We believe in the law as an instrument of change. So let's get $3,000 or $4,000 together. Let's hire a consultant. Let's show why we need an environmental impact statement, which is what we did. The community scraped the money together. We hired a consultant. The consultant did a 5-page report, which was actually quite thoughtful. You know how quickly $3,000 goes these days. We gave it to the city of Kingston, which was dying to get this project done. They wanted to sell this water, and they wanted to monetize, to use the Wall Street phrase, their assets. And we, of course, saw those assets as possibly more valuable, protected and husbanded and reserved than to turn into bottled water for communities that don't need bottled water. And long story short, after a 4 or 5 month sort of Cold War, the government entities told the company it needed to do an environmental impact statement. And we were very happy about that. And the company said, well, we'll think about it. Because I'm sure they were conscious that they could fly someplace else, find somebody else's water where there wasn't activism, where there wasn't organization, maybe where they didn't have as strong an environmental impact law, and they could get through without following the law. The community wasn't satisfied. They fought for withdrawal of the tax abatements. They fought for withdrawal of the state funding grants, which frankly we thought was a little outside our purview. We encouraged them, we gave them a little advice, but we stayed focused on the environmental law, and the community basically got the state to withdraw the tax abatements and the grants. Now, anybody who knows how states work knows that that's a big thing, that states don't generally do that once they decide to give away grants, whether it's because there were campaign contributors or whether because there were powerful politicians who were in favor of the project, or whether the state just generally thought this was going to be a great project. The state did a 180 turn on this, and they withdrew the the abatements and they withdrew the grants. And at that stage, the company said, see ya, we're not going to do the environmental impact statement. The project's not interesting to us anymore. So, they talk about competition in capitalism. They could not compete on a playing field where they had to describe and own their environmental impacts and make the project succeed. I mean, how many bottles of water will you see in the 2 blocks between here and wherever you walk, and they can't make it work without tax abatements? So clearly they're just going for, a return on investment from a community that will help them get beyond a fair return on investment to a really great return on investment. And people, of course, say that political contributions is the best investment a corporation can make. Now, not satisfied with just stopping a bad project, we have worked with the community to foster better laws and better mechanisms for what happens the next time somebody comes along. And lo and behold, next week, next Tuesday, when the election comes in Kingston, there's a ballot initiative that says we want our city council to have control, not just the water board, because they're elected by us and they're responsible to us, the city council. Next time somebody wants to sell water out of our city, city council needs to weigh in on that. And that referendum, I think, knock wood, is going to succeed. It has the support of all the politicians. The mayor of Kingston felt constrained to support the referendum, and it did not protect him from being ousted in a primary by a young member of the city administration who just happens to be an environmental educator. So change happens. It's hard, but it happens.